I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey.
That was the turning point in my life, you know. That was the moment that everything trajectory-wise just changed. And yeah, I'll just never forget the day. Came out of school, Mum came to pick me up, and she was just very quiet. And she just said the phrase, "Everybody's at your grandma's house, but your dad's not there." And she just said that. Look, your dad's taking his life. He's not here anymore. I've experienced like the depths of the human experience, like that journey through therapy. I can't tell you how tough. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. After losing Paps to suicide, shared my story to 5 million people on TV for Channel 4, where I performed a song called "Learn to Live" about my journey, exactly what I just spoke to you about, and showed that on stage. Performed its piece of music, and that saved the lives of a number of men who reached out to me afterwards. And now I'm like, now I'm at this point, and now that whole journey I look back on makes sense. We're at a point in the system where things like anxiety, depression, self-harm, eating disorders are at an all-time high. It's not a joke, it's a serious thing. Is your young lad a killer? As we saw headlines after adolescence. Do you know how I get really... It makes me so angry for young lads. Like, I think what's important is...
Because we're conditioned to keep going, to keep moving forward all the time, and that is seen as the barometer of success, to move forward and progress, rather than actually success could be just being here right now. I am not just the sum of my actions. I'm not worthy because I provide and look after other people. My presence in this world is valuable. And if you're being something first, then you go to your doing, you're coming from who you are, and then that feels genuine, authentic, connecting. If we want a world that's fair and equal, then we need men to be exploring this themselves, and young men to be growing up and not being influenced by people that are often blaming other marginalised groups for the challenges of the world, whereas actually it's like, well, we have to solve these problems ourselves. Yeah, I would love the education system to change. I think it's really archaic, and I think that there's really practical stuff like how to apply for a mortgage, like, I don't know, how to budget for your life. So there's these bits, right, that are missing, and I get we can't teach everything in schools, but so I think if you can create time and space, which is not always easy, but it's down to you. I think this is the key.
Yeah, I guess if you could leave the listeners with with one invitation for their life or business to leave with them, what would that be?
You can change it.
Is that I've been in the Mariana Trench, like the lowest of my own personal low. The Mariana Trench being the deepest place in the world, and then I've also been to Everest. And it'd be remiss of me not to talk about my own mental health as well. And I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So when I was 21, still at uni, I think third year-ish, something like that. I was super sad. I was tremendously sad, and I did not know why. I was very confused and very sad, and didn't really know what to do or where to turn. So I made a very poor attempt, thankfully, at taking my own life after my suicide attempt, and I was back with him. And I didn't know what I was about to say, but it just came out in the conversation. I was like, "Dad, I needed to show you how sad you've made me feel," and that was really quite hard. Prevention is better than cure, right? So but anyone that listens to this, if I could say one thing, it's just genuinely, if you want to feel happy, give, and you will feel it. You will feel it in bucket loads. What does motivate you is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, do I get the freedom to express and be the best that I can be? Mastery, can I be the absolute, am I being trained, supported and developed to be the best that I can be? And purpose, do I derive a sense of meaning from the work that I do? If you can find a situation where you get paid the number that you need for money to be not an issue, and you can find autonomy, mastery and purpose in your work, you're winning.
What are the biggest challenges they face from a start-up?
The number one thing that I can say almost without fail over the course of 10 years that every entrepreneur or founder has said to me.
I think success is when you can take that mask off and you can be Spider-Man and you can be Peter Parker at the same time. Going all the way back to the beginning and how I came into the world, where I don't know Asis also means blessing. That's what my name means.
What does it mean to be a man?
There's the masculine and the feminine. A man is someone who can dance with the feminine. Yeah, this is the first time me talking about this. Like, yeah, there was a moment in time when I didn't want to be here anymore. Rumours that she would have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then later we found out that she did. But just on that day, like, my entire world just collapsed. There was this moment, and where I was over the balcony of where I was staying, in my flat, and I was just like, yeah, if I jump off this, like, it doesn't matter. I took a step back, and this is what I'd say. I'd say, yeah, suicide did happen that day, because physically I didn't jump, but emotionally I did.
You know, and I was like, I need to do something to change my life, and I just got to such a state where I was like, you're going to be dead before your kids get to, 15. Just for me, I think my life changed when I got to about 40. Got to 40 and I was pushing 20 stone. Decided to run a marathon, as you do. But from that went on a real big journey, and then COVID kicked in, which was the worst time of my life and probably the best time of my life. I was very close to killing myself. At the time it was COVID, like we've mentioned. Lost my wife, found out I got ADHD in a little one-bedroom flat, got made redundant, started going to the food bank. I was like, fuck me, what's the point of being here? It was a Tuesday night and I was standing there with a massive knife in my hand, but all I could think about was my kids. And yeah, to this day, they're my life. All of that darkness, all of that pain, what came out of it was beautiful. From darkness we can find light. And I'm a very big believer you can be at your darkest place, but if you can find something that can motivate you, or you find that little nugget that you can cling on to, go with it and move forward with it, really.
What does success mean? It's to love and be loved. It's to inspire and be inspired. It's to motivate and be motivated. It's to support and be supported. It's to help and be helped. Basically what we're trying to say is, like, can society model a way of being vulnerable and showing what's going on the inside rather than just exposing what we do on the outside? I suppose the challenge to humanity is, how do you show vulnerability as a strength and a courage and something to be celebrated? It's come from two major events in my life, and I've only recently got more and more comfortable with sharing the first one I'm about to tell you. My father left me when I was 2, and I walked out of my room and then saw my brother in the corridor. We both were looking at each other going, well, where's mummy? And we walked into her room, and she passed away in her sleep. And that takes me to, like, the second I suppose major event that shaped me who I am today, and that was, and I was given a diagnosis of a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and a very rare autoimmune disease. This was my ask for help boot camp, because I was at my most helpless. But you don't realise you've got 2 lives until your second life begins. So you can get the fulfilment flywheel going, but if you can be brave, you can be the catalyst. Not only by offering help, but by asking for it.
I want to be in this world more than that world. And I think if you start thinking about how much time you're actually online, it's staggering, because this part of my life is really precious and I really want to be in it. Integrity for my dad, to this day, but in how he managed business, it was absolutely, the underlying thing was integrity. It was just the most isolating experience of my life, but I was on this this cycle of kind of living in a parallel universe with Dan. In the end, I had 5 miscarriages, and I eventually got help. They very quickly established I'm what's called factor V Leiden, so my blood was just thickening up when I had a pregnancy, creating clots that was then not passing the oxygen to the baby. That was it. I needed blood thinners for the next pregnancy. I had blood thinners, so I injected myself with heparin. I took aspirin. Aspirin. You buy it anywhere, right? Aspirin. And then I had the wonderful Layla. I'd never had any mental health challenges, but I understood that was the game, right? That was where I had to focus my energy. Almost every day from sort of the 4th and 5th miscarriage, I would leave work, come home, shut the front door, collapse on the floor and cry. But all of that said, the honest to God truth is, on the face of it, I've had a nice life, I needed to know I've got some grit. I need to know there's some real substance to me, and that I can draw on at any point in my life. I've done hard stuff. I can do hard stuff. I say that to Layla all the time. It comes from a book, Untamed, but we can do hard stuff. So it is a gift, and I will only see it that way. It's a gift because I know how precious those children are, and they mean the world to me. And because I know something about myself I wouldn't otherwise have known.
38 years old, I climbed the railings of a bridge to jump in front of a train. I never thought I'd ever get to that point. There's 80,000 people in the UK who have, on a daily basis, have suicidal ideation. 6,500 of them actually go ahead and do it each year. I wake up in the morning and I open my eyes and went, I wish I didn't open my eyes today. For the next couple of weeks, I was going into work depressed as fuck. I think that's crazy what I was doing, and I should have asked for help, but I didn't. And it's that suicide ideation. I didn't want to end my life. I just wanted to end the pain. You probably don't remember me. My name's David. And she went, yeah, I remember you. Where are you? What are you about to do? And I went, I'm about to jump in front of a high-speed train. She went, no, you're not. You're going to get on it, not under it. Without that card in my wallet, my son wouldn't have his dad. Shame is around suicide is one of the most powerful feelings, and that's why people don't talk about it.
From that one day, I didn't realise it at the time, but that one night out, I went on to leave 10 years of my life to mental illness. 10 years of feeling like that, every single day, relentless. Well, the first time I guess I really knew I was different was on holiday in Menorca. I'd been out for a meal with a family, and we were walking down the street, and I remember the first time it happened. And then after about 100 metres, I just had this overwhelming fear that if I didn't go back and touch the lamppost, I thought something bad was going to happen. Everyone saw this confident kid, but what they didn't see is the struggles I had walking to school, stepping on brakes. My life just totally changed at 21 years old. I went on a night out when I was 21. Strangely, it was just a comment that he made that changed the trajectory of the next 10 years of my life. It was just to try and get to sleep. Some nights I was just drinking because I thought if I drink then it'll numb the pain, but then it just made it a million times worse. My mind was constantly telling me, you don't belong here, you shouldn't be here. And there was times where there was a smoking area at work, and it was about 7 floors up, and I there was so many times I was stood up there just thinking about how I could escape, get out of this world. The biggest problem with OCD, that is how OCD can really show up. And the important thing really is I met somebody who literally changed my life during those early days, the only time I could have met somebody really. And I said to her, going back to that point briefly about the learning to become comfortable feeling uncomfortable, it was never about the hardest thing. It was always about the little things. It was about living, finding ways to live. And I've got a picture on my screensaver, and this is what it really means to me.
One of my closest friends, he took his own life in 2009. There was something about him that I could tell he just didn't love life that much. It had a massive impact on me. Even beforehand, didn't even really When you'd say the word suicide, it wouldn't trigger anything in me before.
What needs to change? Like within, how do we
I
start to fix this?
I don't know, is the honest answer. You know, I guess if we could get into people younger and just tell them how special they are and surround them with love and make them realise how wanted they are and how needed they are and actually how profound the impact would be on anyone else if they weren't there.
After all the stuff that's covered from the curriculum, there's not enough time for teaching what truly matters, in my eyes. Because if the priorities is for developing children into adults that can then, not just survive but thrive, then it's what they're putting into the curriculum and what they're putting pressure on is void, in my opinion. We don't need experts in using subordinating conjunctions. We need experts in managing emotions. It's going to be even more intense with AI in the next 10 years. And that curriculum that's focused just on getting kids ready to work in the Industrial Revolution, which is not around anymore, something needs to change. There's not a single adult that doesn't go through something really hard. And they have to learn how to deal with that when it happens. Why can't we teach people how to deal with that when they're 10 years old? The curriculum as it's set now is probably okay for about 30% of kids and the way they learn. So I don't know why we're grading kids' academic ability on this one way of learning. One of the big things is like habits for happiness. We need to build habits for happiness in kids. If the kids at the school are unhappy, then you need to do something.
What's the one thing that we can change tomorrow to put us on this path? What would it be?
The priority that emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, emotional tolerance is within that school. That's one thing that I would love the priority to be in all schools. The ideal, the kind of best possible goal would be that
happy money is you're able to tell stories about money that allows it to flow. Getting to the top of the first mountain isn't about how much I've achieved. It's about realizing it isn't about achievement. I have a diary where I had described 3 things that I needed to achieve by the age of 30. That I assume was like success. I'd be a millionaire, I'd be a doctor, and I'd have my black belt in Kung Fu. I've come to realise success is a feeling for me. It's less about an achievement or a goal. It's about alignment. There's a movement forward and a comfort with what is. And that for me it feels like a definition or a being of success that will last me a lifetime. The thing that really stood out for me was this idea of nothing is in existence other than the present moment. How can I define what life is about that is aligned to what I want, what I decide, in inverted commas, but it isn't going to harm others? It means that if you don't succeed, if you don't make a lot of money, if you don't have a perfect family, if you don't get a house, if you don't do all of these things that are some measure of success, then you're a failure. What's needed? What's needed right now? And how can I help? And then that, for now, that's my purpose, because that's what's needed and I can do something about it, as opposed to, I only ever do this in my life. It is the most powerful religion this planet has, or these humans have ever created. Beyond any spiritual religion, no matter where you are in the world, you will believe in money. And that sense of agency and that acceptance of what is, for me, is how I would define happiness. We all have the ability to choose, we're not always aware of it.
The single most important question someone in midlife should be asking themselves right now.
Ooh, wow. The single most important question that someone in midlife should be asking themselves right now. I'm going to shoot from the hip here.
Success for me is freedom. Like, I just believe fundamentally that you cannot fight nature. Nature will always win. So it's about making sure that the work that you do, or the family life that you have, or the partner that you might choose, or whatever, friends that you have, actually work with you in what naturally, when it comes down to your wiring, it is that you need. My soulmate, who I've known since I was 5 years old. Sadly, I lost him during COVID, actually, to suicide. But he nailed success because he got up every morning and he lived that day. He'd understood the magic. You know, this is what philosophers have been writing about for centuries, about actually it's not about all of this other stuff that you've just talked about that dictionary definition. That's all absolute nonsense. Success is breathing in your day, feeling every moment of your day and being present. I remember the first time I felt with no adrenaline in my system. It took 6 months. It was one of the most beautiful days of my life. I had no plan. I had nothing to achieve. I had nothing to do that day. And I existed wholly and utterly in this day. What I do know is that taking them out and going travelling with them without a shadow of a doubt is the single best decision of my life. You could imagine there's uproar. It was like the most read story on the global Daily Mail for just over 24 hours. I really don't believe in a career path at all. I believe in a life path. Hats off to anybody that's an entrepreneur if they don't have the why, because it is so tough. It can be very dark and very, very difficult and very, very lonely. And if you don't have the why, how the hell do you get yourself out of that hole? Richard, my best mate, the one who's not with us anymore, he wasn't striving for fulfilment. He just lived every day. When you're present in a moment and you take it in and you breathe, you're not striving for fulfilment, not thinking about anything. You're just there and you just exist. And that has to be the ultimate. That's the nirvana, right? Go and polish your basil leaves. That's what I always say. The secret, really, to success is...
I think it's important to do this, of course I'm going to get some pushback as I put it on LinkedIn. Within like 6 hours there are 200,000 views, like hundreds of comments, people going absolute bananas saying my granny in an old folks home who I've never seen is going to die because you're walking around. Bit by bit got more and more outspoken, and I was obviously successful because I lost my Facebook account was terminated, my LinkedIn was suspended twice. I don't agree with the lockdowns, the impositions on our fundamental liberties. I do not want to have this jab or the vaccine passports. No kid should be having this. At the time, it's like, well, we've got to fight back against the lockdowns and the forthcoming vaccine passport. Just the level of corruption and the influence behind these political leaders. I think I'd always maybe had that from a young age from family influence, where politicians weren't people to sort of really ever listen to or give much respect to. Toby Robinson character, even though what is his real focus? It seems to be, my mind, is not so much campaigning for people's rights, freedoms. It's more creating division and sort of hostility between groups, and particularly aimed at the Muslim population in this country.
They brought me into the hospital and sat me down and just said, it is a brain tumour, it's extensive, it's complex, and we need to operate to save your life. It's crushing in terms of like your soul, your identity, your heart, your beliefs. You just think, what have I done? Why me? I remember my surgeon said to me, I will do whatever I can to keep you as well as you are for as long as possible. And I said, will I be able to walk? And he said, that's the plan. And I've never felt prouder walking out of that hospital on my own 2 legs. It's like 100 yards. And I've never walked 100 yards like I meant it more than that. I've learnt to disregard time. It doesn't matter how long or short it is. It's just an artefact of existence, right? But it's what you do with time that matters. I've learnt a lifetime's worth of lessons in the last 2 years. These months have been a steep and unforgiving learning curve, but there is a lesson here too. I've learnt my voice is something I cherish. but it can be expressed in so many ways. Most significantly, I've learned I must not allow the opportunity of having a voice to pass. So as I support and guide my family, as I talk to other survivors, and I tell anyone that will listen about the need for a cure, I'm not going to be silent. I will make my contribution.